Hello, my name is Talora Marin, and I watched my own parents rip up a check worth $29 million, set it on fire, and smile like they had just won. To them, I was never a daughter, I was a threat. The will was their battlefield, and my silence was the only weapon they thought I would never use. But when the flames died down, I whispered to myself, that was never the real check. What would you do if the people who raised you tried not just to cut you out, but to erase you entirely? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We share new stories every single day. Hit like and let us know what city you're watching from in the comments. I had not worn heels in years, but I put them on that morning, mostly so I could hear them click against the floor of the law office. Something about that sharp sound gave me a fragile sliver of strength, like I was walking straight into battle. Not that anyone noticed. Certainly not Helene, my mother, who glanced right through me as if I was some temporary intern. Not Clifton, my father, who barely gave the smallest nod. And definitely not Rivienne, who leaned back in her chair, legs crossed, sunglasses perched on her head, like she was already waiting for the valet to bring her car around. Mr. Landry, the family lawyer, cleared his throat. He gestured firmly for everyone to sit. "We are here to fulfill the final wishes of Harland Cooper," he began. His voice was even, professional, as always. Per his request, all immediate family members are present. I sat down last, quietly, always the last. The conference room smelled of old leather and lemon polish. I remember that detail vividly, because I fixated on it to keep my hands from shaking. Across the table, Mom was already fidgeting nervously with her pearls. Dad's arms folded tight across his chest, and Rivienne tapped her nails against the armrest with deliberate rhythm. When Mr. Landry opened the folder, she tilted her chin upward, like she already knew she had won. "Your father made specific allocations," Mr. Landry said, unfolding a crisp sheet. "To his daughter, Rivienne Marin, he leaves the cabin in Jackson Hole and the 1959 Gibson guitar." Rivienne blinked, stunned. "I am sorry. That is it?" she asked. He did not respond, simply kept reading. "To Clifton and Helene Ward, his son and daughter-in-law, he leaves the heirloom grandfather clock, his vinyl collection, and a charitable gift of $10,000 made in their name." Mom let out a sound like she had swallowed a bug. "Excuse me?" Dad scoffed. "This is a joke." "And to Talora Marin," Mr. Landry paused, then turned to me directly. "He leaves his entire financial estate, totaling $29,246,000. You could have heard a feather drop. "What?" my father barked. Mr. Landry held firm. "It was notarized. He made this change in person 3 months ago. It was deliberate." "That cannot be right," Mom said sharply. "She has not spoken to us in years. She left this family. She abandoned us," Dad snapped, his voice rising. "She does not get to walk in here like some martyr and collect a fortune." To his credit, Mr. Landry did not blink. Instead, he reached beneath the desk and pulled out a thick brown envelope, sealed with wax. Harland's old stamp, the horse he carved by hand, was still visible. My fingers hesitated, trembling. But I reached out and took it. Inside was a folded check and a note. "For the one who stayed silent and stayed strong. You were never forgotten." I saw everything, before I could read it twice. My father's hand lunged across the table. He snatched the check from my lap. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice even. He did not answer, only held it up, inspecting it like it might be counterfeit. Mom snatched the note. "Give that back." "Stayed silent? You mean ungrateful?" She ripped it in half, then again. until the words were unreadable. Rivienne leaned back, smirking. "Oh, please. You are not the victim here. You have always played poor little Talora. You cut us off, and Grandpa just felt sorry for you." Rivienne sneered, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "That is not true," I said quietly. But Dad was already pulling a lighter from his coat pocket. "Clifton," Mr. Landry warned, standing abruptly. "I am not letting her buy her way back in," Dad growled harshly. He struck the lighter, flame flickering bright. The check curled fast, smoke rising in delicate spirals, until it dropped, blackened, into the crystal ashtray in front of him. "Now," he said, voice thick with rage. "We are even. Completely even." I did not move, did not even blink. Mom crossed her arms smugly. "This is what happens when you betray your family so cruelly." "She did not even come to the hospital when Dad was sick," Rivienne added sharply. I sat there, still, watching the smoke trail upward like incense at a funeral, watching the last of my grandfather's wishes dissolve into ash. But what they did not know, what they could never guess, was that the check was not real. What burned was only a blank stand-in I had found in Grandpa's study a month before he passed. He had warned me they would try to ruin whatever they could not control. Told me they would want to destroy something, anything. So we planned for it. The real check had already been wired directly to a separate trust. Untouchable. Untraceable. The folder he had handed me in private 2 months earlier was still tucked safely inside my coat pocket. So I smiled. Not the kind you wear in family photos, but the kind that pulls up slow, like the dawn after a long, dark winter. They had already decided I was the outcast, the one who left. Let them keep that version. Let them think they had won. I stood slowly, pressing the now empty envelope between my hands, and I walked out. No parting words, no dramatic exit, just the tap of my heels on that marble floor, echoing louder than before. Outside, the cold Midwest air hit my face, but I did not flinch. I slid into my car, placed the charred envelope beside me, and opened the brown folder Grandpa had marked. Only open when they burn it. Inside, on top of a new set of documents, was one handwritten line. Let them think they won. That is where it starts. By the time I pulled into the bank's private lot, the mid-morning sun had already burned away the mist. I sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, watching a single leaf tumble down from an old oak outside the building. There was a strange calm about the day, too calm, considering what I was about to open. Inside the bank, Mr. Keaton greeted me with the same quiet dignity he had shown since the day Grandpa first introduced us. He was already waiting by the elevator. "Miss Marin," he nodded, gesturing toward the secured floor. "Everything has been arranged as per Mr. Harlan's instructions." We did not speak much as we rode down. I appreciated that. I was not in the mood for small talk. When the vault door finally groaned open, it was not the cold air or the echo that gave me chills. It was the sheer weight of what I was about to see. Mr. Keaton walked over to the numbered drawer. He slid it toward me with a soft metallic sound. "Take your time. I will be right outside," he said gently before stepping out. I sat on the small bench, staring at the box. 2 months ago, Grandpa handed me a brown envelope at a diner off Interstate 17. He looked so tired, like the years had caught up to him all at once. I remember his voice, low but steady. "Do not open it until after the will has been read. Not a moment before. The key is the word trillium. You remember it." I had repeated it to myself every night since, like a prayer, or maybe a shield. Now, as my fingers undid the latch, I whispered it again under my breath. Trillium. Inside the box, neatly packed, were 3 things. A folded check, a flash drive tucked in a black velvet pouch, and a file of legal documents bound with a red ribbon. The check made my breath hitch. It was real, undeniably real. $29 million, signed in that same looping script I used to trace on birthday cards. The paper was heavier than I expected. as though it carried the full weight of what had been stolen from me for so many years. I opened the legal file next. It held 2 older wills, one from 8 years ago, another from just 3. In both, Rivienne and my parents had been listed as the primary beneficiaries. Notes in Harlan's handwriting filled the margins. This was Helene's suggestion, felt off. And later, Clifton insisted again, said Talora would not know what to do with it anyway. The final pages were different. Clear, decisive. Everything was mine. My chest felt tight, but not from sadness, from relief. Then came the flash drive. I waited until I was back in my car before sliding it carefully into my laptop. The screen flickered. Then Harlan's face filled the frame. He was filmed in what looked like his den, surrounded by old books and that same dusty lamp I used to hide beneath as a child. If you are watching this, then I am gone. I wish I could be there when they finally realized they did not win. He smiled, soft but sad. I know what they did to you. I saw far more than I let on. The way they froze you out, took your college fund, turned your room into storage while you were still in school. I knew about the lies, the way they claimed you were difficult, just because you refused to fall in line. He paused, exhaled deeply. I should have stopped it sooner, but I thought, maybe, just maybe, time would fix it. I was wrong. He leaned forward. You were the only one who never asked for anything, but gave more than anyone else. You stayed silent. You endured. That was never weakness. It was true strength. You loved without conditions, without strings. I blinked fast, lips pressed tight. This is yours now, he continued, voice firm. Let them react. Let them throw their endless tantrums. But stay calm. The law is already on your side. His eyes softened again. You will know when to speak, but sometimes silence itself, is the sharpest blade. Then the screen faded slowly to black. I sat in my car for a long time, just still. The check, the files, the video. None of it changed what had already happened. It did not give me back birthdays spent alone. It did not erase the night I stood outside in the cold, watching my family's house glow with Christmas lights, knowing there was not a single present inside for me. Later that night, back in my rental, I placed the burned envelope, the one they thought held the real check, on my kitchen table. Yeah. Then I opened a drawer and pulled out the old scarf Harlan had given me when I turned 10. It still smelled faintly of cedar. I wrapped the real check inside and placed it gently into the safe at the back of my closet, along with the USB and documents. Then I sat at my small desk and opened a folder I had not touched in years, the college letters I never replied to, the business ideas I had once sketched out, back when I still believed I was allowed to dream. One memory slipped in like a cold draft. Christmas break, sophomore year. I had come home early, hoping to surprise them. Instead, I walked into my bedroom and found it stripped bare. Bed gone, desk gone, replaced with beanbags and art prints. Rivienne's voice echoed down the hall, bright with pride. Isn't it cute? It is my reading nook now, Rivienne said lightly. I did not argue. I packed quietly, but I remember sitting in the car that night, hands on the wheel, whispering to myself, just get through it. Just get through it. And I did. Now, holding the real folder, the one no one else even knew existed, I whispered something else. I am not that girl anymore. I backed up the video onto a private drive, printed copies of the legal documents, and stored everything in a fireproof case I had bought that very morning. Then I made tea, sat by the window, watched the world outside not change at all, and still smiled anyway. They thought they had won. They had no idea. The game had only just begun. I did not expect to sleep soundly after what I had uncovered at the bank, But the past 2 nights had passed in a kind of quiet clarity. I did not toss or replay old arguments in my head. I did not wonder if I had overreacted. For once, the silence in my apartment did not feel empty. It felt earned. So when my phone buzzed at 6:13 a.m., the sound felt sharp, like it did not belong. I reached for it, still half wrapped in the old quilt my grandfather had given me back in college. No caller ID, just unknown. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in my chest whispered, "Answer." "Hello, Talora." Her voice was warm, too warm. "Hey, it is Rivienne. I know it is early, sorry, but I was really hoping maybe we could talk, just us." I did not respond right away. She filled the pause. "I thought maybe we could grab coffee like we used to, just talk a little. You pick the place." The last time Rivienne asked to talk just us, I ended up being blamed for ruining Mom's retirement dinner, because I did not laugh at her husband's joke about my useless degree. Still, I found myself saying, "All right, 11 o'clock, Cornerstone Cafe." She agreed quickly, far too quickly. We hung up, and I deleted her number right after. Again, just in case. I did not do much for the next few hours. I read through some of Harlan's old financial notes from the vault, let a pot of tea grow cold, and walked the perimeter of my apartment more than once. There was nothing in that small space that needed checking. I just did not want to sit still with whatever Rivienne thought she had planned. By the time I reached the cafe, the sky had softened into that grey winter light that makes everything look a little tired. I spotted Rivienne instantly. She had taken the same table we used to claim during finals week. A quiet corner near the window, too far from the heater. She was already seated, coat off, a baby pink sweater hugging her arms. Her smile lit up when she saw me, almost like we were meeting after a spa weekend. "Talora," she breathed, standing as if to hug me, then thinking better of it. I took the seat opposite her without a word. "It has been far too long," she said, stirring her coffee even though it looked barely touched. "I keep thinking about those late nights here. You remember? You with your highlighters and flashcards, me stress-eating banana bread like it was going out of style." I gave a small nod. "You used to take my tea when you ran out of money." She laughed a little too loudly, then quickly dialed it back. "Well, yeah, you always had this way of planning ahead. You were like 40 at 21, in a good way." Silence settled between us. I sipped my chamomile. Then, as if on cue, she shifted gears. "Mom has not been the same since the will reading," she said softly. "She is not eating. Dad barely speaks. They are hurting. They feel like you just disappeared on them." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Her smile flickered. "You know, I get it, I really do. You have always felt like the outsider, but cutting us off like this? It is cruel, Talora." The tea tasted warm, grounding. I let the silence work. "I mean," she went on, "even Grandpa. Sometimes he said you held things too tightly, that you were distant." I looked at her. "Did he say that directly to you, or did someone else feed you those words?" Her jaw clenched, just for a second. "I am just saying, no one wants this family to fall apart." She tried to meet my eyes, but I was already reaching for my mug again. Her tone wavered, then she pressed forward. "That check, the one you threw in the fire, was it real?" There it was, the real reason. She came closer, her voice cracked slightly. "Because if it was real, then that is a lot of money to just let burn away." I set my mug down gently. "It was just a meaningless piece of paper." She blinked hard. "What? It is gone now?" The silence this time was not comfortable. It bristled sharp. Her smile was gone. "Whatever Grandpa left you, whatever game this is, do not make it worse than it has to be. This family has already lost so much." I stood slowly, slipped my coat on. "Then let us not lose more." "Wait." Her voice rose slightly. "You know Mom is already thinking about contesting the will." I turned toward her. My face did not move. She is welcome to try. Absolutely welcome. There was not anger in my voice, just pure finality. Rivienne's mouth opened, then closed. I walked out without another word. The wind had picked up. It bit through my coat as I walked to my car. But I did not rush. Each step felt like it was breaking a rhythm I had stayed trapped in for far too long. I did not look back. I did not plan on doing much when I got back to my apartment that night. I kicked off my shoes, peeled out of that sweater that still smelled faintly of cinnamon latte and confrontation, and stood still in the middle of my kitchen, like I had forgotten what normal even looked like. My hands still felt cold, even though the room was warm. I was reaching for the tea kettle when I noticed something odd. Something taped neatly to the outside of my front door, just below the peephole. At first, I thought it might have been a flyer, but the way it was centered, plain white and unmarked, it did not feel random at all. I opened the door and gently peeled it off. No name, no return address, no stamp, just a plain white envelope, sealed. The handwriting was tight, angled, written in a pen that dragged slightly on the paper. Something about it stirred a memory, but it floated just out of reach, like trying to remember the smell of a childhood house. I closed the door, sat down at the kitchen table, and stared at it for a long minute. Then I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no sign-off, just a message that stopped my breath. What they burned was not the real check. Do not speak. Just move wisely and look in box array at the security firm. You will understand everything. That was it. I read it again, then again. By the fifth time, I still had not moved. My mind was racing, but my body was utterly still. It was not fear that locked me in place. It was recognition. Whoever sent this knew exactly what had happened. And whoever they were trying to help me. I folded the note back up slowly and slid it under a cookbook on the counter. Like hiding it would somehow make the moment more real. Then I opened the drawer next to the stove. There it was, my grandfather's old brass key. He had given it to me on my 18th birthday, wrapped in a handkerchief with only one sentence. You will need this someday, when you are ready to claim yourself. Back then, I thought it was just one of those cryptic, sentimental things old men say when they are feeling nostalgic. I never asked what it opened. I just kept it tucked away, forgotten. Until now. I stared at it, sitting in the palm of my hand, heavier than its size should allow. I did not sleep that night. I lay on the couch in the dark, the envelope and the key resting on the table, the message echoing in my ears like it had been whispered by someone standing right behind me. Morning came grey and early. I called the same private vault firm Harland had used, the one where they had read his will. The receptionist picked up after the second ring, her voice clipped but polite. "Good morning, Langford Vault and Estate," she said. "Hi," I began, my voice calm. "I am Talora Marin. I am calling to follow up on a residual item tied to my grandfather's estate. I believe it is in a secured box." There was a brief silence, then typing. "Do you have the key code or box number?" "Box number 8, I said firmly. "And yes, I do have the original brass key." More silence, then more typing. "That box is listed under your name, Miss Marin," she said. "We can schedule an appointment for this afternoon. You will need 2 forms of ID and the original key." "I will be there at 2, I replied. I spent the next few hours in silence. No calls, no music. I even let the tea go cold. My body was still functioning. Washing up, getting dressed, pulling my hair into a low knot. But my mind was somewhere else entirely. If you were in Talora's place, holding that old brass key and a message you barely understood, would you feel fear, hope, or defiance? Share your thoughts in the comments. Type number 1 if you would have opened the box too. At 1:30, I slipped the brass key into my coat pocket, locked the apartment, and drove in silence. The building sat tucked into a quiet street lined with trees that had long since lost their leaves. A discreet sign out front, a buzzer at the door. When I walked in, everything smelled faintly of cedar and professionalism. The woman at the front desk greeted me with a neutral smile. "Box 8, correct?" I nodded, handed over my ID and the key. She examined both carefully, then led me through a narrow hallway into a small wood-paneled room. There was only one chair, one table, and a wall lined with safe deposit boxes. She unlocked one, box 8, and stepped out, leaving me alone. I sat. Inside the box were 3 items. The first, a certified cashier's check made out to me for $29 million. I did not react. Not out loud. But my breath caught for a moment, like my body had to adjust to the sheer weight of the number staring back at me. The paper felt real. The seal was stamped deep. The bank's name was legitimate. The second item, an envelope sealed in red wax. The words on the front, written in that unmistakable slant I had seen only in birthday cards and family notes growing up, read, "Only if they burn the first one." I held it in my hands for a long time before opening it. Inside was a short note from Harland. "If you are reading this, then they showed you who they really are. The money was never the real gift. It was knowing who to trust when the fire started. Keep your own counsel, and do not let them make you small again." There were no tears, but there was a tightness in my chest. Not pain, not sadness. Something older, deeper. Like a knot I had been carrying for years had finally been named. I repacked the envelope, folded the check carefully, and closed the box. I told no one, not even the woman at the desk, who simply nodded as I returned the key. Driving home. I did not turn on the radio. I let the silence stay with me. Back in my apartment, I took off my coat, placed the envelope and the check in my own small safe, and stood there for a long moment. My reflection in the mirror did not look any different, but something had shifted, not outside, but inside. Later that evening, just as I sat down with a bowl of soup I had not really wanted, a soft sound made me freeze. A rustle. Paper, maybe. I got up, walked to the front door, and opened it. There, just beneath the doormat, was a second envelope. No name, but this time no tape, no note. Just the unmistakable shape of someone watching across the street. Half shadowed, half bold. They did not flinch when I looked their way. They wanted me to know they were there. I stood there on the marble steps of the vault office, the sun warm on my face but my chest hollow. The city moved around me, cars humming, feet tapping. But my focus narrowed to one thing, the woman across the street. She was not just standing, she was watching. Middle-aged, with dark auburn hair pulled into a tight knot. Slacks. A beige jacket. Sunglasses too large for the cloudy sky. But it was not her face that gripped me. It was the scarf. A pale blue silk scarf with ivory trim, and tiny stitched initials at the corner. MC Marjorie Carroll. My mother. That scarf had disappeared 3 years ago. She had claimed the laundry lost it. I had believed her, but now it hung gently around this stranger's neck, like it belonged there, and she was staring at me. Not the kind of glance people throw in passing. Not casual curiosity. She tracked my every move. I adjusted the strap of my bag and looked away, pretending to check my phone. Then I turned toward King Street like I had not noticed her. My hand shook as I pushed through the door of the cafe on the corner. Inside, it smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso. I did not stop. I cut through the dining area, nodded at the teenage barista, and headed straight to the employee door in the back. "Ma'am, you cannot—" "I am just meeting someone in the alley. It is fine, absolutely fine," I said quickly, not even turning around. The metal door groaned as I pushed it open and stepped out into the quiet rear alley. Brick walls closing in on both sides. I moved fast, looping behind the bakery, then across the parking lot, doubling back toward the street 2 blocks over. When I finally reached the corner and peeked down toward the vault building, she was gone. No scarf, no beige jacket, just tourists and traffic like she had never been there. But she had. I knew she had. I did not go straight home. My gut would not let me. Instead, I walked past storefronts, past memories. My feet led me to the old library Harland used to take me to when I was little. It had not changed much. The same chipped stairs, the same fading scent of paper and polish. Inside, I made my way to the back row of public-use computers. No ID required, no login needed, just time and a calm hand. I opened the browser and typed in the estate email account I had been given during the will review. It was not something I checked often. Most updates were legal jargon or notifications from the trust officer, but today something tugged at me. And there it was, a flagged message. I had never opened it. Sent 3 weeks ago, from holderacrust.org. Subject line, "Do not ignore." I hesitated for a breath, then clicked. The message was brief. They are not after the money. They are after the signature that proves who the company belongs to. An attachment, a scanned document. I clicked it open, my hands cold now. It was a legal transfer form, signed and notarized, dated 2 weeks before Harland's stroke. It assigned full control of Talora Marin holdings, voting rights, every decision-making share. To me. My name was right there. My full name, written in his familiar looping script, Talora Marin. My breath caught. This was not just about the money. This was about power, control, legacy. I leaned back in the chair, heart pounding. Not from shock, but from recognition. They did not want me poor. They wanted me powerless. I printed nothing, downloaded nothing. I just closed the window, wiped the browser history, and left. Outside, the wind had picked up. I crossed the street toward my car when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Blocked, actually. I should have ignored it. But something in me whispered, "Answer." "Hello." There was a pause. Then a voice I had not heard since Harland's funeral. Calm, measured, familiar. "You opened box 8, did you not?" I froze. "Who is this?" "It is Maeve," she said quietly. "And if you have opened that box, then you need to listen carefully. Very carefully." Maeve, Grandpa's assistant for over 2 decades. She had vanished from the estate paperwork right after the will was read. I had assumed she had been paid off or retired quietly. "What do you mean, listen carefully?" "You think they are just cutting you out of the inheritance?" she asked. "It is not about that anymore. They are rewriting the records, erasing you." My mouth went dry. "Why? Why would they even do that?" "Because if you do not exist on paper," she said, her tone grim, "you cannot own anything. You cannot challenge anything. Check the land deed to the Charleston property, the original, not the copies. Then go to the Charleston Historical Archive. Use your birth name. I left something there for you months ago, just in case." "Wait, Maeve." But the line went dead. I stood still, clutching the phone like it might burn through my palm. They were not just stealing. They were rewriting. They were burying me under red tape, under fake histories, under new paperwork, and no one would know, unless I stopped them. I walked back to my apartment like I was underwater. I passed people, cars, dogs barking behind fences. I do not remember any of it. All I remember is locking the door behind me, tossing my keys on the counter, and pulling out my laptop. I opened the browser, heart drumming hard now, and then I typed in the name I had not used since I was a child, Talora Marin. And what came up made me forget how to breathe. I did not even remember typing it. My hands moved on instinct. Talora Marin. I hit enter. The screen blinked once. Then came the result. Status: deceased. Date of death: 2 weeks ago. Cause: pedestrian collision. confirmed via dental records. I sat frozen. The chair beneath me felt miles away. The world too quiet. I was not just written out of the will. I was erased from life. The young woman at the archive's reception counter clicked her pen and glanced up. "Everything okay, ma'am?" I swallowed hard. I think there is a mistake." She pushed her glasses up. "Can I take a look?" I turned the screen toward her. Her expression did not change. "Huh?" she muttered. "I mean, it happens sometimes. Records get mixed up, especially if someone else with your name passed away. Though I highly doubt there is another Talora Marin born in this county." She leaned closer. "Well, this is not just some mix-up. This is a certified copy. See this seal? That means it was pushed through by someone with authority. This went through the state registrar's office." My breath caught. How would something like this even happen? She hesitated. "Honestly, usually someone requests it through legal channels. Could be a hospital, an estate executive, or a family." "Family. Of course. They faked my death," I whispered. The girl did not react, just reached for a sticky note. "You could file a correction with city records. You will need your ID, your social security number, proof of identity. It is not impossible, just a hassle." A hassle. I nodded slowly. "Thanks. You have been helpful." The moment I stepped outside, I felt stripped bare. Like walking around without skin. Every breath hurt. Every step felt too loud. I caught a cab to the Charleston City Records office, my fingers trembling as I pulled out my ID, my social security card. Everything I could find in my bag that tied me to the name they said no longer belonged to a living person. The clerk was polite. Too polite. That kind of rehearsed customer service tone that made me instantly uneasy. She typed for a few minutes, then frowned. "That is strange." "What is it?" I asked, trying to sound steady, even though my throat felt tight. "Your social security number has been flagged as inactive. That only happens when someone dies," I finished for her. She looked at me, pity in her eyes. "Exactly. That is exactly right." I pulled out my phone to log into my bank app. Error. Account not found. I tried the credit card app. "Your card has been suspended. Contact your issuer." I leaned against the counter, dizzy. "Ma'am," the clerk said gently, "do you want me to call someone for you? Maybe the authorities?" I shook my head quickly. No, I just need a minute." She nodded softly and stepped away. I stared out the window. The streets moved as usual. People heading to lunch, couples laughing, kids waiting for a bus. And me, a ghost with a heartbeat. A memory flashed. Me sitting beside Harland after his third stroke, his voice slow but sharp as ever. "If they cannot control you, sweetheart, they will wipe you off the map. That is what power does when it is afraid. It erases." He had not been exaggerating. I left the building without another word, walking fast now. It was not just about being removed from the will anymore. This was not about money. It was about identity, legacy, existence. They had not just stolen my birthright. They had killed me, on paper at least. I did not feel safe going home. Not to my apartment, not to anywhere familiar. So I ducked into a nearby cafe, used the public Wi-Fi to search cheap motel, and booked one under a fake last name. The woman behind the front desk did not even look up when I paid cash. The key card barely worked, but the door finally gave with a reluctant click. Inside, I dropped my bag and sat on the edge of the bed. The walls were a sick yellow. The comforter stank of old cigarettes. And the AC rattled like it was protesting life itself. None of it mattered. I pulled out the small USB drive from box 8, the one labeled only with my initials. I did not hesitate. The laptop buzzed quietly as it read the contents. A folder popped up. Just one file. "Watch me first. MP4. I clicked. The video loaded slowly. Then there he was. Harland. Sitting in the sunroom of his old house, a red cardinal perched outside the window behind him. His eyes, though tired, locked straight into the lens. If you are seeing this, Talora, then they have gone too far. My throat tightened. You were always the one who stood apart. Not because you wanted to, but because they would not let you in. But the company, the trust, the legacy, it was always meant for you. He paused, breathed carefully. But I knew they would try to take it. And when they could not, they would come for you. So I moved the final piece someplace they would never think to look, someone they would never even suspect. His eyes narrowed. There is a man named Caleb Voss. He lives off Route 17 near the old warehouse. You will find what you need there. The screen flickered. Then it went black. I sat still, heart pounding. They had buried me alive. But Grandpa had planted something in the dirt. I stood up, tucked the USB back into its case, and looked at myself in the mirror above the cheap dresser. I looked nothing like I had a week ago. No makeup, hollow eyes, but something else had shifted too. I was not scared anymore. I was focused. Time to resurrect myself, I said quietly. And I meant every word. I barely slept. The cheap motel bed was stiff. The air conditioner rattled like it was coughing itself to death. And every half hour a semi roared past on the highway outside. But none of that was what kept me awake. It was the voice in that video. Harland looking right at me like he knew this day would come. And maybe he did. Maybe he had always known they would try to bury me. Not just figuratively, but by name. On paper. In records. I left before the sun fully rose. The air was heavy with that damp coastal humidity, the kind that clings to your skin before breakfast. I drove with the windows down anyway, needing the wind, the noise, anything to keep me anchored while my thoughts chased themselves in circles. The GPS took me 40 minutes out of Charleston, past strip malls and abandoned gas stations, and deeper into pine woods and cracked roads. I passed a bait shop, a rusted-out barbecue pit, and then nothing, just trees. Then, like a memory you did not ask for, the old chain-link fence appeared on my right. Behind it, a few squat metal storage units sat like relics from another time. A dented sign with faded letters leaned at an angle. Carroll & Co. Emergency Holdings. I parked beside a patch of weeds and gravel. For a minute, I just sat there. No movement, no sounds but cicadas and a distant crow. It was so ordinary, so plain, it almost felt like a joke. But the GPS flashed green, Unit 19B, 36 feet ahead. The padlock was not broken. It squealed when I twisted the key from the USB box. Dust shook loose as the door creaked upward, and light spilled in through the grimy skylight above. I stood at the edge, staring. Boxes, metal shelves, a rolled-up rug, a few office chairs stacked half haphazardly in the corner, but front and center, like he meant for it to be found first, sat a fireproof briefcase, black, heavy-duty. And on top, taped with yellowing Scotch tape, a note in Harland's handwriting. If they ever burn you, open this. I pulled it close and sat down on one of the crates. My fingers fumbled with the latches. Inside were truths I was not ready for. His voice again, this time on a small tape recorder, labeled in pen. For her ears only. I pressed play, and his old voice, now more fragile, filled the quiet space. They told me they would put me in a home if I tried to change it. Your aunt even brought papers she claimed were court-reviewed. But I knew exactly what they were doing, so I left you something they could never reach. I blinked, holding in the tears. They do not just want to cut you out, Talora. They want your silence. But you... The tape crackled. You are the legacy they are afraid of. Below the recorder was a manila folder. Inside it, my original birth certificate. Not the revised one the lawyer at the firm had shown me 2 years ago. The one that listed my stepfather's last name. This one was untouched. Pure. Talora Marin. No hyphens, no edits. Next came the letters, 10, maybe 12 of them, all addressed to me. Most had never even been mailed. One was dated the week before his will had been allegedly finalized. Another, written 2 days after the forged death certificate had been filed. I kept going. A will draft, signed and notarized, naming me sole executive and majority stakeholder of the Carroll Family Trust. My hands started shaking. That date. It was after the so-called death record. They knew I was alive, and they filed it anyway. Below the will, tucked under a hard plastic binder, was a land deed. My name was on it. Not my father's, not Rivienne's, mine. Harland had transferred the rights quietly years ago and recorded it through a separate trust. It was the land under the estate, the very foundation they had built their whole illusion of power on. I took a breath, a deep one, then another. This was not just theft, it was war. I pulled out my phone and started snapping photos, every page, every single document. I scanned them using a cloud encryption app I had downloaded the night before, and uploaded everything to a hidden drive, backed up in 3 different secure locations. Then I labeled them by category: will, trust, identity fraud, deed. As the last file uploaded, I pulled out the cheap prepaid phone I had picked up near the motel and typed in the number I had written on the back of my motel receipt: Probate and Asset Law, Charleston office. A woman answered on the second ring. "I need to speak to someone immediately about a will contest and identity fraud," I said calmly but firmly. She paused. "Do you have documentation?" "I do, and I would prefer to speak in person. Discreetly," I replied. I booked the earliest available slot for that afternoon, 2 o'clock. As I stepped out of the storage unit, the late morning sun was already brutal. I locked it back up, double-checked the latch, and started walking back to the car. My burner phone buzzed. Voicemail. I played it on speaker as I unlocked the door. "Talora." Rivienne's voice cracked like she had been crying. If you are alive, I did not know they were going to take it that far. I did not know about the death form. I swear to you it was not me. I just signed where they told me. I did not know what it was. Please believe me." Silence. Then a shaky breath before she hung up. I stood there, phone still in my hand, for a full minute, not moving, not thinking. And then I laughed, quiet, bitter, but with a sharp edge. "Thanks for the confession, sis." I climbed in, buckled my seatbelt, and checked the address for the law office one more time. They wanted me gone, forgotten, erased. But I was still here, and now I had proof. I stepped out of the dusty warehouse and into the sunlight like I had just climbed out of a crypt. Everything in my arms felt heavier now. Files, a USB, Harland's tape. Not because of the weight, but because of what they meant. Proof. After all their lies, I finally had something solid. I did not drive straight downtown. I pulled off to a diner near the overpass, sat in a booth by the window, and ordered nothing but coffee. I needed a moment to breathe, to think, to center myself. It was only after uploading every scanned page to a locked cloud folder that I finally exhaled. The burner phone buzzed quietly next to the mug. "Ms. Merton will see you at 3:30. Use the 6th Street side entrance. Ask for Rita." I left a tip under my untouched mug and drove downtown. Past the courthouse I used to walk by as a teenager, wondering if justice ever truly lived inside it. Today, I was going to find out. The Fulton and Wesley building did not look like the kind of place that held secrets. But I knew better. Legal offices did not need to scream power. They whispered it, behind frosted glass and heavy doors. I checked my reflection in the elevator wall. My face looked calm, maybe even elegant. No one would ever guess that just 2 days ago I had been an erased woman. Now I carried my own name like a loaded weapon. At the receptionist's desk, I spoke softly. Talora Marin. I have a 3:30 with Iris Merton. The woman behind the counter blinked just once, but I caught the flicker. Her fingers paused over the keyboard, like she was waiting for someone to correct her, but none came. "Of course," she said, voice neutral. "Please, have a seat." The waiting room was quiet, full of hushed tones and expensive silence. Before long, a door opened. She looked like she belonged in another era. Elegant suit, silver hair swept back, no-nonsense eyes. "Talora Marin," she said, more statement than question. "I was wondering when you would finally stop being the ghost in their story." Her voice was not sharp, but it was not soft either. It was steady, anchored. She did not speak to impress. She spoke like a woman who had won battles and buried the unnecessary. I followed her down the hall into a private room, simple but shielded with thick walls and a locked cabinet. She motioned to the table. "What have you got for me?" I set the case down gently, opened the files, spread the photos, plugged in the flash drive. She did not flinch as she examined each document. She just nodded occasionally, like ticking boxes in her mind. But when she unfolded the letter marked in Harlan's shaky hand, "If they ever burn you, open this," her eyes did something small. They softened, just for a breath. Then she pulled a drawer, laid out a notepad, and tapped a pen twice before speaking. "You are not going to like this next part." "I have not liked much so far," I said quietly. She half smiled. "Fair enough." Iris opened a file of her own and pulled out a sealed envelope. Her fingers slid it across to me. "Your grandfather was not blind. He knew retaliation was a possibility. 2 months before his death, he came to us quietly, had us notarize a witness affidavit and a personal statement." I looked at the seal, unbroken. He had named me sole heir to all liquid assets, stocks, bonds, cash reserves. Not the land. That was trust deed territory. And from what I had shown her, I had that handled. But the statement, she said, it was gold. I opened the envelope. His words were simple, typewritten. "I, Harland Cooper, being of sound mind and body, hereby affirm that I have revised my estate to reflect my granddaughter, Talora Marin, as the rightful and sole heir of all financial holdings not tied to land. I have done so free from coercion and in full knowledge of existing family disputes." Beneath it, the notary's name, Edna Monroe, a name I had not heard since childhood church picnics. "She witnessed it?" I asked, my voice rough with memory. Iris nodded. "She is retired now, lives upstate, but she gave a written affidavit, notarized in front of 2 attorneys. I stared at the document. My throat felt dry. Not from nerves, but from something else. Vindication. Cold, quiet, clean. "So what now?" Iris leaned back in her chair. "Now," she said, "we file a probate challenge. We will request an expedited hearing based on concealed evidence and falsified filings, and we let the court decide who deserves ashes and who deserves empire." A silence settled between us. Then she added, "But do not contact them. Let them keep smiling on camera. Let them keep calling you unstable in public. Every word they say right now is a gift." I pulled my phone from my coat pocket and showed her a screenshot. My mother, arm in arm with Rivienne, standing in front of the estate sign with the caption, "First in line, always have been." Iris did not react. "I have already scheduled a photographer for me. I will post it right under this, a little before the notice arrives. Just enough time for the shame to set in." She nodded once. "Let it bleed slowly." I stood, collected my files, and shook her hand. As I stepped into the hallway, my phone buzzed. Not a text this time. A voice message. It was Rivienne. Her voice trembled, thin, frayed, almost desperate. "If you are alive." I did not know they were going to take it that far. I did not know about the death form. I swear it was not me. Please, please do not shut me out. I did not sign anything. It was all, "Dad, please." I listened to it twice. Then I pressed save. Walking out onto the street, I smiled. Not out of cruelty, not out of pride, just out of peace. Thanks for the confession, sis. The night before the hearing, I could not sleep. Not from nerves. That part had burned off weeks ago. When they left me behind without even a backward glance. When they laughed about it online. When they posted the check like it was some badge of honor for abandoning me. But now something sat heavier in my chest, a vibration under my ribs, like a storm forming. Not from fear, no, from knowing I was about to end it. That morning, I walked into the county probate court with my spine straight, my hair tied back, and Iris beside me. A calm, focused rhythm in her step matched my own. She gave me a quiet glance as we stepped through security. "Last chance to back out," she murmured. I met her eyes. "They have earned every single word." We passed through the marble atrium and followed the signs to hearing room 2B. It was quiet, too quiet, for what I was about to do. The kind of quiet that makes people forget how loud truth can get when it finally has a microphone. Inside, my parents sat together. My father wore a navy blazer he had not even bothered to iron. And my mother was in pearls, though they sat wrong on her neck, like they knew they did not belong there. They did not look at me, but their smirks did not hide their lawyer. Young, overconfident, loud, leaning back in his chair like he had already won. It made what came next even sweeter. Judge Caro entered, stern as always. He did not speak much, but when he did, it felt like he measured every word in court weight. The hearing began. Formalities, probate language, pages turned, documents introduced. Then Iris stood. She did not rush. She spoke like someone who knew silence was her greatest ally. "We are here today to finalize the probate on the estate of Harland Cooper, whose will is in dispute." My parents' lawyer stood next. "Your Honor, the decedent's most recent will, dated February of last year, clearly leaves all major property and assets to my clients." Judge Caro nodded. "Continue." Iris calmly opened a folder. "We are submitting into evidence a revised will, executed under legal counsel, dated 5 months later, naming my client, Talora Marin, as sole heir." My father scoffed. "That is forged." Judge Caro held up a hand. "You will have your turn." Iris did not even blink. "Additionally, we have a sworn affidavit from a retired notary who witnessed the signing, as well as correspondence proving no cognitive impairment at the time." The young lawyer rolled his eyes. "It is not unusual for families to claim new wills, especially estranged relatives." Iris smiled faintly. "We anticipated that objection." She tapped her tablet and connected it to the courtroom's screen. The lights dimmed slightly. Then Harlan's face appeared. Gaunt, eyes soft but sharp, lying back in a hospice bed, an oxygen tube in his nose. But his voice was clear as day. "If they are in court again, it means they are doing what I feared. If you are watching this, sweetheart, it is because I knew they would try to erase you, but you were never forgettable." I did not breathe. He looked straight into the camera. Not frail, not confused, just tired and done playing along. "They made me sign a version of the will I did not want, pressured me, told me you were just trying to take what was not yours. I was weak, but not gone. I changed it back quietly, and I made sure someone honest watched me sign it." He paused, swallowed hard. "They will pretend it is about fairness, but you and I both know. It is about shame. I was never ashamed of you. I was ashamed of letting them win." The video ended. My mother made a choking noise. The lawyer beside her whispered something urgently, but she waved him off, as if refusing even now to acknowledge the collapse unraveling around her. Iris was not done. She added a printed record to the file. "Your Honor, we are also submitting text messages from Rivienne Marin, sent to Harland Cooper during his final months. suggesting he had better stick to the script, or else things could get complicated very fast. There it was. No yelling, no theatrics. Just facts. Plain, undeniable. Judge Caro leaned back slowly, his expression unreadable at first. Then came the deliberate shake of his head. "I have seen greed," he said. "I have seen cruelty. But rarely have I seen both this loud and this foolish." He looked directly at my parents. "You attempted to mislead this court, conceal coercion, and destroy legal documentation. Ms. Talora Marin is affirmed as the sole legal heir. The estate shall be transferred accordingly." I exhaled, but he was not finished. "To the respondents," he continued, voice sharp, "your behavior warrants further scrutiny pending investigation into elder coercion and document tampering. I am ordering a freeze on your current assets and issuing a fine for contempt of court." My father stood up, face red, like he was about to argue. But the judge did not even acknowledge him. Court is adjourned. Outside, the air felt different. It was not just the spring breeze. It was lighter, freer. Like something heavy had finally peeled itself off my back. I stood alone on the courthouse steps, papers in hand, when a reporter with a microphone approached. "Ms. Marin, would you like to make a statement? Anything you would like to say to your parents after all this?" I paused, looked out at the street. People passing, horns honking. The world did not stop for my story, but mine had just changed. I turned to the camera. They already said it all when they set fire to the only love that ever truly saw me. And then I walked away, not in anger, not in triumph, but in peace. That peace was not weakness. It was survival. It was strength. It was the quiet truth that they could burn paper, they could forge records, they could try to erase my very name, but they could never erase me. Because what my grandfather left me was not just wealth, or deeds, or signatures. It was proof. Proof that silence can be broken, that lies can be burned down, and that even after betrayal, you can stand up and claim your place again. This story is not only mine, it belongs to anyone who has ever been cut out, silenced, or told they were nothing, only to rise back stronger. I would love to hear your thoughts, your own experiences, the moments you felt erased, but chose to stand tall again. Share them in the comments below. I will be reading. And if you want to hear more stories like this, do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you will not miss the next chapter. Drop a comment with the words, "I choose freedom," to stand with this story, to declare your own resilience. Thank you for spending this time with me. I will see you in the next video.